My daily routine with plants is really that I just think about them all the time. I wake up in the morning in my apartment, which is full of plants, and I generally check in, see how they're doing, have my coffee, and then head to my art studio in Queens, where I have a nice big window that connects me to the outside, and I'm able to start working on my biophilic designs, where I use natural materials to create my artwork. When I get to my studio, I generally am going to be working on a lichen installation where I just dig in with all of my different kinds of lichen and start creating these pieces. Or I'm working with live plants where I'm going to be designing a vertical garden that is going to either be in a home or in a commercial space. And I end up using plants that I think will really thrive in that environment, depending on how much light they're getting in that space. Lichen is a really unique material because it has so much texture and is easily preserved. So you can create a piece of art that feels alive and rich without having to constantly water it and do a bunch of maintenance. If you use it in a piece of art, you can hang it up and just leave it. Plants have always been a big part of my life, and I think it's mostly because of my grandparents. They were pretty much, self-appointed botanists and always had very extensive gardens. And really, when I was over there, we just spent all of our time in the gardens, in the vegetable gardens, in their flower gardens. And from a young age, being exposed to so many plants and how relaxed they make you feel and how much you can learn from them and just how incredibly beautiful they are, it really makes you slow down and look and learn and be in an outdoor environment. But something else that's interesting is that I'm named Linnea based off of the book Linnea in Monet's Garden. The name Linnea is from Carl Linnaeus, who is the inventor of binomial nomenclature, which is how we name them. And he named a beautiful it's a little pink bell after himself, Linnea. And then a book was written called Linnea in Monet's Garden, which is about a little artist that went to go see Monet's garden and paint there. So it's pretty funny how my name has become my destiny. Used to work a corporate job. I went to art school and then worked a corporate job. I worked for IBM, I worked for a startup. And in a lot of these spaces that I was working out of, some of them were warehouse spaces that didn't have any windows, didn't have any natural light, didn't have any plants. And it was incredibly draining. And even if the work was something I was learning from, the environment was just so tough and so sterile. So I ended up going part-time at the startup I was working at and going back to school for horticulture. And it was the most incredible experience to be learning about propagation, the history of plants, working with people that surround themselves with plants and have dedicated their lives to learning about them. And I just realized that in that environment is where I was thriving and how I needed to transition my life and my work to really use plants fully. So during the pandemic, I had already started to go back to school for horticulture, but I wasn't quite sure what I was going to do with it. It was a really tough time because I knew that I wanted to be surrounded by plants, but I was just trying to figure out what my path was going to be. And I ended up spending a lot of time walking through the forest, and on these walks, just trying to think about what my journey would look like, I ended up coming across moss and lichen. And I kept looking at this material and being like, wow, it's just so interesting, it's so different, it's got so much texture. So I went back, did a lot of research on how to sustainably harvest, how to preserve lichen and moss, and from there I ended up just creating my pieces of art. And it was just a really organic process of me walking into the woods and having that end up being the spark for my life to be constantly surrounded by this unique material. I do vividly remember looking through my old sketchbooks and my old work and seeing a constant thread that was so obvious when I was looking for it, but everything that I was inspired by and drawing or creating throughout college and afterwards was all related to plants and the natural world and sustainability, and it's all so connected that it felt so silly that I hadn't seen that thread. I actually remember having this idea when I think it was probably 2016, I was heading on a train to one of my corporate clients to this warehouse space in the middle of nowhere, Rhode Island, and thinking that I wanted to create a meditation room out of plants. So I would love to create spaces that are just fully encompassing, almost like a womb, but with natural plant material that just makes you feel so relaxed and comfortable. And it doesn't have to be a specific room or space that you go to, but to create larger scale pieces that then bring that sort of emotion and spiritual connection to plants would be a real dream of mine.